So today we're going to more specifically talk around one topic that a lot of our mutual staff and clients ask Christy on there from time to time. And so today we're going to talk about a form called a W8BENE form. Yes, W8BENE form. It's a bit of a tongue twister, but we do get a lot of questions about this form. And whenever we're asked questions, we can tell people what this form is, but that's about the kind of limitations to what we can do. And I always refer them to you, Christy, as you know. So, we've done that quite a lot recently. So we thought it'd be great for us just to have a very brief chat today about the form and answer some really practical questions that might help to, educate those out there who have ever been asked to complete one of these forms or who in the future might also be asked to complete one of these forms, and to kind of eradicate any misunderstandings and just make it really simple and practical for everyone who's listening in today. So, Christy, I'm going to kick off with a really basic and simple question. What is a W8BENE form? Can you let everybody who's listening know?
Yes, it is a form that the IRS has developed, and the reason for the form is that if you are doing business in the United States, physically doing business in the United States, your client has a responsibility to withhold federal withholding tax from what they pay to you. But in many cases, the foreign business that's doing business in the U.S. is simply making a sale, making a transaction. So what this form does is it tells your client, your customer, that all of your profits are UK-based or based in another country, and that there is no tax filing responsibility in the United States, and thus there's no need for the withholding of federal withholding tax for U.S. purposes.
Perfect. So, in terms of completing that form, who is it that needs to complete the actual form? And why is it they even need to complete that form for their clients?
So who needs to complete it is really anyone who's making a sale out of the U.S. into the U.S., whether it's a service or a product. But you will not necessarily always be asked for it. The onus is on the client or the customer to ask you for the form in case they are ever audited and asked why they did not withhold federal U.S. tax. So if you are asked to complete it, then you give your client the reasoning why they don't have to withhold this tax from you. And it quotes treaty language so that our treaty keeps us from being double taxed. So it quotes the treaty language and lets the client know that they don't have to do this, and the client keeps it in their file and ticks their box, and that's the end of it. But the form can be a little intimidating.
Okay, maybe we'll come on to that next then. So just to be clear, clients don't need to go, or the businesses in the UK or any other country other than the US that are doing business in the US don't need to go looking for this form, but they just need to be ready to complete it if a client asks them to. So actually, the onus or the trigger for completing the form is not with the UK business, it's with the US client who they've made the sale with. Hi.
That is correct. And you will find that the bigger the client, your client, the U.S. customer is, the more often they'll ask for it. So if you're working with a big tech company like Microsoft, they're going to be very in tune with their purchasing department, will be very in tune with paperwork. They will be more likely to ask you for it than a small client or a smaller business will be to ask you for it.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. A lot of our clients sometimes, or prospective clients we're speaking to, will come to me and say, where do I find this form? I've been told I've got to fill it out. And my first question is, who's told you that? It's not your client. You don't need to go looking for the form. So that's great to really clear that up and make it clear. So as you've said, the form can be a little bit intimidating. And often it's at this stage actually where, people will reach out to us and say, help. how do I complete this form, which I always point them towards you, Christy. So I wondered if you could just, give us some practical advice and guidance on how businesses go about filling out the actual form.
Absolutely. The form can be found on the IRS website, and the best place to find it is through Google. So if you put in to Google W8BENE, you'll come up with a PDF that right from the IRS website, and it's fillable. So if you do need to complete one, and it's determined that it is easy to find and you can do so without having to print it out, etc. There are many, many pages to the form because it's designed for several kinds of businesses. So really the completion of it is page 1. There's a section in page 2 where you have to quote certain portions of the treaty and have that knowledge of which sections of the treaty apply to your situation. There's another section, I think it's number 39, where you have to tick a box and then you sign and date. So it's very simple when you know exactly what you need to do to complete the form. One piece of advice I will give is that you do not have to have a U.S. tax identification number to complete the form. That's often a big misunderstanding. And we've had clients that have gone ahead and gotten a tax identification number from the IRS to complete this form, which then has caused more complication. You do not need to do that. So that's my most practical piece of advice is if you're asked to complete the form, don't get a tax ID number. Talk to a professional first.
Yeah, definitely. I think we could just say in then section 39, are we talking about a really long form here?
This is from memory. I think the form is about 12 to 13 pages long. But when I say sections, some of them are very small. Okay. But I believe it's 39 that I have a copy that has all my notes on it. So when I am asked, I have all my notes there and can point people directly to where they need to complete the form and which boxes they need to tick.
Yeah. And where it's not a tick box and it's a question, are the answers that businesses have to give quite extensive? Does it take a long time to pull information together to fill out the form? What's kind of, what have you seen?
Yeah, no, the first page is the most lengthy page, and it's really about the information is about your business, your address, where you're from, etc. Your tax ID number in the UK, so would be your HMRC identification number gets completed there. The second page is where you have to have a little bit of knowledge about the treaty. So the treaty between the US and the UK has many sections as well. It's about 15 pages long. And this is where it's not lengthy, but you do have to understand the sections of the treaty that apply to your situation and do a little bit of explanation as to why you're completing the form, maybe 4 or 5 lines of explanation.
Right, okay, perfect. And if you got any other sort of kind of general advice that you could offer to those listening around the form, other than obviously what you've already shared?
I would say the first thing is don't panic. It's a common form. It is intimidating, but don't panic. Please feel free to reach out to us or to me, which I know you'll give my contact details, because once I can walk through the scenario, your exact scenario with you, then I can help you with the language that you need to use and which boxes exactly to tick, because it is confusing. And just don't worry about getting a U.S. federal tax identification number just to complete this form. You may need that number for other reasons, but not simply to complete this form when your client asks you for it.